I never imagined that my husband, the man I once trusted with my life, would become the very reason I lived in fear. That night, our baby was only 5 months old and crying in pain. I held him close, trying to comfort him, when my cruel husband stormed into the room, furious at the sound. In a blind rage, he clenched both his fists and punched me so hard in the stomach that I collapsed to the floor, injured and trembling. As I lay there, gasping for breath and holding my baby tightly, I knew my life would never be the same again. Hello, my name is Olivia Hart, and I'm 31 years old. There was a time I believed I had built the perfect life for myself, stable, successful, and full of love. I worked as the head of marketing at a reputable firm and took pride in being financially independent. I was the one who made the mortgage payments for the house my husband Jason and I lived in. That house meant something to me. It was a symbol of everything I had worked for. Jason, my husband, was charming, funny, and loving, at least in the beginning. We had met in our late 20s and fell into a whirlwind romance that led to marriage within a year. His family, particularly his younger brother Ryan and their mother Deborah, were closely knit. Having lost their father years ago, the two brothers were deeply devoted to their mom. At first, I admired that devotion. I thought it spoke to Jason's character, that he was loyal, protective, family-oriented. Deborah welcomed me warmly in the beginning. She'd compliment my career, ask about marketing trends, and nod politely whenever I talked about work. Marketing, huh? Sounds important, she'd often say with an almost approving smile. I thought I was integrating well into their family. In the early years of our marriage, we had joyful holidays and spontaneous family nights. I remember one Thanksgiving at Deborah's house. There was laughter, board games, and warm food. It felt like I belonged. It felt real. But that feeling didn't last. It was during a New Year's Eve gathering at Deborah's home that I first sensed something was off. I had gone into the kitchen to refill my glass of wine when I heard her voice, low, sharp, and mocking. "She thinks that thrift store dress makes her look sophisticated," Deborah said, chuckling. "Poor thing's trying to play with the big leagues." I froze. She was talking about Elise, Jason's cousin, a single mother doing her best to hold herself together. Up until that moment, I had thought Deborah's humor was just a little dry, maybe old-fashioned. But hearing her ridicule Elise behind her back in such a cruel way felt like a punch in the chest. After that, I started noticing things I'd previously ignored. The whispers between Deborah, Jason, and Ryan. The looks they exchanged when someone left the room. The snide remarks dressed up as jokes. It wasn't just Elise. Deborah had something to say about everyone. How someone's husband didn't earn enough, how someone else's child was falling behind in school, how another relative was getting fat. The teasing I once thought was harmless now felt mean-spirited and calculated. I felt uncomfortable, like I was suddenly on the outside of a clique I didn't know I'd joined. The breaking point came one Easter Sunday when Deborah, in her usual calm and judgmental tone, began criticizing another family member's financial decisions. Buying a new car on a teacher's salary? Irresponsible. That was it. I couldn't keep quiet anymore. "I think it's rude to talk about people like that," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "We're supposed to support family, not mock them behind their backs." The room went silent. Deborah looked at me with a smirk. "You're a little too sensitive, Olivia," she said with a sugary sarcasm that stung far more than if she'd just yelled. I turned to Jason, expecting he would say something. Anything. But he didn't. He looked away. From that day on, family gatherings changed for me. I would show up, smile politely, and count the minutes until I could leave. Jason stuck close to his mother, sending me the occasional guilty glance from across the room, but never once standing beside me. The family I had once longed to be a part of now felt like a stage where I was the outsider nobody wanted. Finding out I was pregnant came as both a surprise and a lifeline. It had been a difficult few months between Jason and me, but when I saw that faint second line on the test, a part of me hoped this new life might repair what was cracking between us. I went to my OB/GYN right away, and they confirmed I was 6 weeks along. Over the next few months, I tried to stay positive. I attended every appointment, took every vitamin, and followed all the instructions I was given. But despite my efforts, the pregnancy wasn't easy. By my 3rd month, I started experiencing severe nausea and dizziness. By the 5th month, I noticed my vision was getting blurry. My doctor diagnosed me with a rare but pregnancy-related condition that affected my eyesight. I was placed on modified bed rest and advised to stop working. Leaving my job, the career I had built with my own 2 hands, broke my heart. Jason wasn't supportive. He came home late, barely asked about my health, and spent more time at his mother's house than with me. His emotional absence became louder than any argument we'd ever had. By the time I reached my 39th week, my doctor made the decision to schedule a C-section. With my vision still unstable, they didn't want to risk a natural birth. I arrived at the hospital with cautious hope. I remember lying on the operating table, listening to the sounds of the surgical prep, and asking the nurse if Jason would be joining me inside. She gave me a soft, apologetic smile and said, "He said he'll wait outside." My chest tightened, but I didn't argue. Moments later, I heard my son's first cry. That sound shattered everything. It was pure, beautiful, and real. They placed him in my arms, and I named him Leo, a strong name for the little fighter he already was. Later, when Jason finally came to the recovery room, he didn't congratulate me. He didn't ask about the baby. Instead, he said, "You didn't really need surgery. Hospitals just push for this stuff. And it's weird having men around all this. It's not how things used to be." Then he left. I didn't see him again until I was discharged 2 days later. Leo was born healthy and full-term at exactly 39 weeks, weighing just over 7 pounds. The moment I held him in my arms, a wave of love, fear, and fierce protectiveness surged through me. I had created life. I had survived a difficult pregnancy. But nothing could prepare me for what came next. Recovery from a C-section isn't easy. The incision stung with every movement. I was sleep-deprived, emotionally fragile, and physically drained. Yet, despite my pain, I was the one who fed Leo at 3 a.m., changed his diapers, held him when he cried, and rocked him back to sleep. Jason, on the other hand, became even more distant. In the first few weeks, he spent more time out of the house than in it. When he was home, he barely acknowledged Leo. No late-night feedings. No diaper duty. No effort to even hold his own son. At first, I gave him the benefit of the doubt. I thought maybe he just needed time to adjust to fatherhood. But by the time Leo was around 5 months old, the reality had become impossible to ignore. Leo had started teething. He drooled constantly, gnawed on everything he could grab, and cried for hours, especially at night. It wasn't just fussiness, it was real pain. His tiny gums were swollen, and his sleep was disrupted. And so was mine. One night, around 2:30 a.m., Leo was wailing louder than usual. I had him in my arms, pacing the room, gently bouncing and whispering to him. My own body ached, especially my abdomen, which still hadn't fully healed from surgery. Suddenly, Jason stomped into the nursery, his face twisted with irritation. "For God's sake, can't you shut him up?" he snapped. I turned to him, startled and weary. "He's teething, Jason. I'm trying. He's in pain." He threw his hands up. "I work all day and then I come home to this? Crying, crying, crying. All you care about is him. What about me?" I stared at him in disbelief. "Jason, he's 5 months old. This is part of being a parent." That's when I saw something in his eyes shift. He stepped toward me with clenched fists. Before I could react, he raised one arm and punched me hard in the stomach, directly where my C-section scar still throbbed. A scream escaped my lips as I collapsed to the floor, clutching Leo tightly against my chest. My vision blurred from pain. Leo cried louder than ever, terrified and confused. Shaking, I reached for my phone on the floor and somehow managed to dial 911. The dispatcher stayed on the line with me until the knock came at the door. Police and paramedics had arrived. Jason was immediately arrested without question. I was placed on a stretcher and taken to the hospital. My scar tissue had been aggravated, and bruising spread across my lower abdomen. The hospital staff documented every detail. A nurse gently touched my arm and said, "You did the right thing. You're not alone." I clutched Leo in my arms, tears running down my face, not just from pain, but from the realization that this was the end of my marriage, and the beginning of something else. I was discharged from the hospital 2 days later, still sore but determined. My mother, Margaret, and father, Henry, were waiting for me in the hospital lobby. The moment I saw them, I felt a weight lift from my chest. My mom wrapped me in a careful hug, mindful of my healing body, while my dad gently took Leo from my arms, holding his grandson with pride and protectiveness. That same afternoon, they brought me and Leo home, to their home. It wasn't just a place to stay. It was a refuge. The warmth of their small but cozy house, the quiet comfort of familiar voices, and the way they instinctively stepped in to help with Leo's feedings and diaper changes, it all gave me room to breathe, to think, and most importantly, to feel safe again. In the first few days, I rested. I slept in shifts, clutched Leo to my chest every chance I got, and cried more than I'd like to admit. But eventually my survival instinct took over. I wasn't going to let Jason walk away from what he did, not to me, and not to Leo. From my parents' dining room table, I opened my laptop and contacted a family lawyer. Her name was Emily Dawson, a sharp, calm woman in her 40s who listened without judgment and spoke with clear authority. "I want a divorce," I told her during our first call, my voice firm. She nodded. "We'll file a petition in family court. Based on your financial contributions and the abuse, you have a strong case for full custody, alimony, and the house." Then I added, "And I want to press criminal charges for the assault." Her expression grew more serious, but not surprised. "That will be handled in criminal court. The hospital records and the police report from that night are very strong evidence. You're doing the right thing." Within a week, Emily had filed both cases. In family court, I was seeking full custody of Leo, alimony, legal ownership of our house, since I had made every mortgage payment. In criminal court, the district attorney filed charges against Jason for domestic violence, assault causing bodily harm, endangerment, since the attack happened with Leo present. As I held Leo in my arms one night, watching him sleep peacefully in a bassinet beside my parents' bed, I whispered a silent promise. "You'll never grow up thinking this is love." The weeks that followed were filled with court dates, statements, and paperwork. But through it all, I kept going for Leo and for myself. My parents stood by me at every step. Emily, my lawyer, guided me with calm determination, never letting me lose focus on what I deserved. The family court hearings moved quickly. Jason never once showed up in person. His lawyer tried to argue that he deserved partial custody and a share of the house, but my financial records were clear. I had made every mortgage payment since the beginning. Bank statements, tax documents, even the loan agreement had my name and mine alone. I submitted the hospital's medical report, photographs of the bruising on my abdomen, and the police report from the night of the attack. The judge's decision came after one final, quiet hearing. Full custody of the minor child is awarded to the petitioner, Olivia Hart, the judge said firmly. Respondent Jason Hart is ordered to pay monthly alimony and relinquish all claim to the jointly owned property. Given the domestic violence evidence, no visitation rights are granted at this time. Just like that, I was legally free. But the story didn't end there. In criminal court, Jason faced serious charges. The prosecution presented my medical records, photos of my injuries, the 911 call recording, the responding officer's testimony, a statement from the ER nurse who had treated me. Jason showed up only once, in handcuffs. I sat in the back row of the courtroom, Leo asleep in his stroller beside me, as the judge delivered the sentence. Jason Hart is hereby sentenced to 4 years in state prison for felony domestic assault, with additional time to be served for endangerment of a minor. He didn't look at me once as he was led away. And I didn't look back. For the first time in a long time, I felt safe. I felt heard. I felt like I had taken my power back. But I also knew the real work was just beginning. After Jason's sentencing, I returned home. Not to our old house, but to my parents' home, which had become my sanctuary. I knew I needed time to heal, not just physically, but emotionally. Everything I had known, my marriage, my family life, my career, had been shattered. But I was still standing. And I had Leo. He became my anchor. Every giggle, every tiny hand clutching my finger, every sleepy sigh on my chest reminded me that love still existed, that I was capable of giving it, and that he deserved to grow up in a home full of it. I began rebuilding my life one small step at a time. I started by opening my laptop and dusting off old projects and resumes. My vision had returned to normal months earlier, and though I hadn't worked in nearly a year, I was ready. I didn't want to return to the same high-stress environment I had left behind. I wanted something that gave me flexibility, something that allowed me to be there for Leo and still provide. With encouragement from my father, I launched a freelance marketing consulting service from home. I built a website, networked with former colleagues, and slowly, clients began to return. Word of mouth spread, and within 6 months, I was managing projects from small businesses across the state, all while staying home with Leo. My mother helped with him during meetings, and my father converted a corner of their guest room into a little office space. It wasn't glamorous, but it was mine. As Leo grew, so did my confidence. On his first birthday, we celebrated with a small gathering in the backyard, just family and a few close friends. As I watched him smash cake with his tiny hands and squeal with laughter, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Pride. Not in what I had escaped from, but in what I had built. I was no longer Jason's wife. I was Leo's mother, a business owner, a survivor. And most importantly, I was free. A year after Jason's sentencing, Leo and I had found a rhythm. I was working with a full roster of freelance clients, managing my time with discipline and care. I had moved into a small, cozy apartment not far from my parents' house. Just enough space for me and Leo to grow, dream, and breathe. But as life grew easier, a question started to echo in my heart. How many women are still stuck where I used to be? One evening, after putting Leo to sleep, I sat down with a warm cup of tea and opened my laptop, not to answer client emails, but to begin something new. I started a blog. It was simple at first. I wrote about my journey, pregnancy, abuse, healing, and rebuilding. I didn't expect anyone to read it. I just wanted to let it out. But within weeks, emails started coming in. Women from all over the country wrote to me, saying things like, "I thought I was alone until I read your story. You gave me the courage to leave. Can you help me find a lawyer in my area?" That's when I knew I had more to offer. With the help of a few trusted contacts and a nonprofit advisor, I launched Leo's Light, a small organization named after my son, dedicated to helping single mothers escape abusive situations. We offered free legal guidance, emotional support resources, and even helped a few women find safe housing. I hosted virtual workshops, partnered with shelters, and even spoke at a local women's empowerment event. Each time I stood in front of a microphone and shared my truth, I saw heads nod, eyes tear up, and hearts open. But the most powerful moment came when Leo, now almost 3, watched me on stage from the front row. As the audience clapped, he clapped too, smiling, innocent, proud. He doesn't remember the nights I cried silently with him in my arms. He doesn't remember the sound of his father's anger. But what he'll grow up remembering is this: that his mother turned pain into strength, that silence turned into voice, and that healing turned into hope. Not just for her, but for others too. Thank you so much for watching this powerful story. If Olivia's journey inspired you, or if you believe stories like hers deserve to be heard, don't forget to like the video and share it with someone who might need hope today. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Leave a comment below and let us know what part touched you the most. And if you want to hear more real, emotional, and transformative stories like this one, be sure to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you never miss an upload. Your support helps us keep sharing voices that matter. Thank you again, and remember, healing is possible, and you are never alone.